All right, so we are live. So, good morning, guys. Donnie Rouse here, and I'm just going to go right into it. Hi, guys. My name is Donnie Rouse, and you are listening to the podcast One Life Eyes on the Road. Wouldn't it be nice if you had a clear understanding of where you had to drive, so to speak, a GPS system that can get you to that destination without any detours or hitting any of those bumps or snags in the road? I'm here to tell you that you actually do have that system, and it is that beautiful thing on top of your shoulder. It is your brain. Before we go any further with this, I want to talk about the inspiration for this podcast. So today is my birthday, and I was just kind of doing a journaling exercise, some reflection. And one of the exercises was writing your obituary. And in doing this exercise, it's looking at your life from the end of your life. And while that might sound a little bit morbid, it's not, because what it's actually meant to do, the exercise, is meant to look at you, at what you want to accomplish, give you a goal, and at the very least, a way of how you want to live your life. So that when you take the step back, you see where that gap is, you see what skills you have to build, you see how you have to show up in your day. But the main reason I came on here is because I wanted to share some of those snags, because the snags that I came across were the same snags that you have in your life, but you might not even know about it. They're unconscious to you. So in order to make your drive a little bit less messy, right? Because life is, let's just admit it, right? Life gets messy. You can't avoid it. Life gets messy. But if you can avoid the major catastrophes, right, like the giant pothole that's literally going to blow out your axle, then at least you can get there, at least you can arrive at that end destination. So before I go any further with this, I just want to ask you, do you know where you want to go? Do you know what you want in life? How long do you want to live? If I said I have this magic wand here and I'm going to swing it and I'm going to tap you on the head and all of a sudden the longevity is granted to you, what would you say? How do you want to live? What would your biggest accomplishments be? And what would the people around you say about how you lived your life? I was doing this exercise, and as I was doing this exercise, the first age that came to my mind was 90. And the reason why it came to my mind, one, it was the example in the book, but I remember going to a clairvoyant years ago, and her mentioning oh, you'll live to around above 90 or something like that. That 90 stuck in my mind, and I was like, oh wow, well 90 is the age. Then I was like, wait a minute, why would I think 90 is the age? Why would I just pick up 90? When I thought about it, it was because the experience I had. Oh, well, she said 90, and, therefore, 90. Things can change in an instant, right? Let's assume that, when she was this all-knowing deity that knew exactly when I was going to pass, right? Then, everything is up to chance, right? Because how you change one habit changes how you do your life. But we're not even going to go there. That's a completely different rabbit hole. But let's just go to the fact that because someone made a suggestion, I was actually taking that as truth. How often do you do that in life, where someone says something about your capability or what you're able to do, and without even questioning it, you accept it as truth? And now all of a sudden you're living your life according to this thing that someone said, because you just put so much faith, so much belief in that person's words. So as I was answering this question, I was thinking about it. I was like, well, that's kind of stupid, right? Why 90? And then when I thought about what it meant to be 90 years old, I thought the image in my mind was this decrepit person who was could barely move and all that stuff. I'm like, well, that's the image I had in my mind. What's the image you have in your mind? Whatever image you have in your mind, regardless of whether it be your age, whether it be your work, whether it be your relationship, unconsciously or subconsciously, that is what you're driving towards. So if you see this, if you have this image, no matter what you want, if that's the image you have in your mind, that is where you're moving towards. So you have to become conscious of it. So this way you could come up with a better vision for it. So seeing this, I said to myself, all right, that's stupid, right? Like, why would I believe that? Like, how do I want to, like, how old do I want to be when I die? Like, how do I want to live my life up until that moment until that moment? Then I just put, like, I lived well into my hundreds, like past 100. But I lived each day with excitement, with passion, with zest, with vitality, moving, being active all the way until the moment of my death. Right? And then all of a sudden thinking about that, we're like, all right, well, wow, that's a completely different image than someone who's hunched over and can barely move and literally has to maybe sitting in a chair all day. It reminds me of this story I had when I was in high school. I remember I was driving. I had a couple of my friends in the car. My friend Nando, my friend Quincy, and I think my friend Mike were all in the car with me. We were coming back from a party up in North Stamford. And if you're familiar with North Stamford, there's all these windy roads. So it was raining out. We're going through these roads. I had just got my license, so I was probably driving a little bit faster than I should. I know I definitely was driving a lot faster than I should have, but I was not intoxicated. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like you see like a sign that says stop sign up ahead. And the friggin' stop sign was literally like, I mean, they literally, it's almost like they placed it right next to the stop sign. There was no warning, right? I didn't know the stop sign was there. And all of a sudden, the stop sign's there. And I slam on the brakes and I skid right into the middle of the road. On the other side of that road was a bridge going over a parkway. So I'm I'm driving. My friend Nando literally looks like he shit himself because he's like, like bracing for it, like pushing himself back in his seat. And I'm looking at that. I'm like, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. And then I turned my wheel, slammed on the gas, and looked in the direction I was going. And all of a sudden, like magic, the wheels caught, the car straightened out in the lane, and we went straight. But how true is that of life, right? Like, if you're looking at the car crash, that is where you're gonna I've heard stories about people driving somewhere in like out west where literally it's a straight road and there's one tree, and everyone and people would crash into that one tree. Why would they do that? Because without seeing anything, the one thing that their eyesight is fixed on is this tree. So I tell you the story just because I want you to become conscious of the things you're unconscious of, right? To bring to these things to light, because that is where you're headed. Now let's think of the things you want, right? You might not know completely and with 100% clarity as to what it is that you want, right? But if you're going in the general direction, then things will appear along the way that will guide you down that road, that will bring you more clarity. Like, life is just going to give you more experiences, but you must know at the very least, right? I'm not saying have like that end all vision, because things change, but at least you know how you want to live, right? You know how you want to feel. You know what you love. So at the least, just have those things guiding you, and then let life guide you along the way. It's like if I work in espresso, right? So imagine you were pulling shots against me, right? You were like, all right, here's 2 espressos. You have to be Donnie Rouse dialing in this espresso and making it taste perfect, right? You know how much experience I've had with espresso. So you're probably like, oh man, what are the chances of you actually pulling a better shot than me? Probably close to none. But now imagine I put a blindfold on, right? And now what are your chances? Like now I can't see what I'm dosing. I can't see how much espresso I'm putting in the portafilter. I can't see, how if my temp is level. I can't see any of this stuff. Now all of a sudden your chances have become that much greater. because at least you know generally what to do. So someone, even if you have all the skills, if you don't know what you're aiming for, the chances of you getting there are nil. So at least align yourself in the general direction of where you want to go. And feel it, right? So as I was doing this exercise, I was like, all right, well, you know, I was saying, well, what do I, what is my biggest accomplishment? What do I want people to say about me? And I was like, well, I want people to say that he lived his life with passion, that he encouraged others, he used kindness, people gravitated to him because he saw humanity in everybody. All of these things. And as I'm looking at the accomplishments and stuff, I noticed one of the things that I wanted my legacy to be was I helped people experience more of life, more enjoyment, more of like the positive things. And it was so funny because looking at this entire journal exercise that I did, not once did I ever mention coffee, but yet at the same time, coffee's in there, right? Because coffee was never, I mean, I love espresso and it's a very, very big passion of mine, but it was always about the enjoyment aspect of it and that slowing down, that taking a moment for life. That is like, that's the foundation of it, right? If you take that away from it, then I don't even want to do coffee. But that's the foundation, and it's been the foundation in everything that I do, and it's been the foundation, especially in this podcast here. Getting you to open you up to experience more, like to experiencing more of life, to following your heart, to listen to that guiding voice inside you. It's not always the easy thing to do, right? Because there's so many pressures, like, societal pressures and stuff that we think we have to abide by when the only thing we have to listen to is our own heart. A quick side note, I was doing a meditation this morning, and it's funny, sometimes I'm like right into the meditation where it's a guided visualization where it's like, all right, well, think about the life you want to, think about what you create. Imagine you have a lamp, you're rubbing the lamp, and you're living your dream. When that plays, like sometimes it's very, very challenging. Sometimes I have a hard time visualizing it because I'm too stuck in my circumstances, right? I'm too stuck in not being present, but like I'm looking at the past and allowing the past to dictate the future and the path forward. And then other times, I mean, I'm like, I breathe into it. I'm like, oh, and then like the thoughts kind of fly away. And then I'm able to visualize. But today I was like, all right, well, let's imagine, like, all right, I'm starting with a blank slate. And I imagine myself literally like almost like taking a squeegee and taking away the past and then looking at the future. And all of a sudden, like, it started to get bright again. The visioning became easier to do because I had erased that past. So I guess why I'm telling you this is that your past doesn't equal your future, right? Your past is what got you to where you are right now in this moment. And I had heard a quote, and I like this quote very, very much. It goes, "You are in no obligation to be who you were 5 minutes ago." I thought it was very empowering, right? Because, if you wanted to literally change something in an instant, you can change it, right? You don't have to give an explanation to anybody. And I guess kind of in closing, pay attention to your heart. Pay attention to the things that give you energy. Pay attention to how your body feels. Because it's always giving you cues as to where you should be putting your energy, what things you should go for, what things you should avoid, what friendships pick you up, what friendships bring you down. Pay attention to that. I had some friendships that I had to cut off, and some that I had to literally just kind of let fade away, or at least not put so much energy in them because they didn't feel right. And I had a hard time, justifying it. Like, well, no, I mean, am I a bad person because I'm no, not at all. You have to do what's right for you and what feels good to you. I promise you, when you make those decisions, like, a week, 1 year, whatever, in the future, you're not going to think about it, right? You have to just follow your heart and do what's right for you. And your body, there's always things, you're always being guided. Right? So anytime you think that you're lost, throw that shit out the door. Just say, you know what? I am always guided. Things are always happening for me. I adopted that, on my most recent trip. That was my philosophy. And it's funny how when that happens, things always work out. I would be on a train And I can't remember, like it was either the train was late or something. Something always happened, and I'd be get on the train, and the conductor's like, "Oh wow, you just made it." I was like, I'm not worried. I'm like, everything always happens. Things always happen for me, or things always go my way. If I would have missed this one, I would have taken the next train. I would have had an hour to wait. I would go to visit cafes. I always knew that I was being guided. And as a result of having that mindset, I was always guided, right? There was always something great happening in what would have looked like a misfortune or a setback or a delay. So I threw a lot of stuff at you right there. But let's rewind it to the beginning, right? How old do you want to live? Like if I had the magic wand and I could cast a little spell on you and you would live at that age, how long would you want to live? But also, how would you want to live? You are in control of this, right? Right? You can't plan all the circumstances. You don't know what some freak accident could happen. Of course, that's just that's a probability of life. But let's say in a perfect world, you have control like over your life just by changing some of your habits. What do you want to accomplish? What do you want your legacy to be? And last, what do you want your friends and family, what do you want them to remember you by? All of this stuff here is creating your vision. It's creating that general, at the very least, a general vision for you to go towards and show you where the gap is, right? So if you said, oh, I want to be more generous, I want to be more kind, but right now you're a freaking Scrooge and you're a miserable fuck, something's got to change, right? So it's highlighting the areas that you need to change now. So this way you could arrive at that person in the future. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe and share it with somebody. That's the only way that we can grow this podcast, is from you subscribing and from sharing it. If this impacted you in any way or give you any aha moments, I'd love to hear about it. You can message me through my website at www.donnyrouse.com. Again, DONNYRAUS.com. There you can also subscribe. You can comment. And that is it. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, you only get one life. Live it. God bless. And I will see you again soon.